Hey Familia, Igni here. The details for the balance changes on the upcoming July update have just been announced, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about them. I'm just going to do this in the order of the release, and I'm going to give my thoughts on the nerfs. I'm going to give my thoughts on their justifications for the nerfs, and what has been nerfed and what hasn't been nerfed, and potentially why. So let's just jump right into it. First off, we're going to start with Blood, just doing this in the order of the release here. So, Tove. 2.33. I'm sure we've all seen it. We've all seen it on ladder tons of times. It's the bane of my existence for the longest time. I thought it was always ridiculous that it was a 3/3 for 2 with an upside. If you play a neutral card, it gains rush. That's bonkers. So the updated version here, I have a graphic. It's going to be nerfed by 2 stat points. So it's going to be a 2.22, bringing it in line with other 2 drops. And this is basically what it should have been, I think, from the beginning, because it's a 2.22. And now it's not just like a super upside to have it potentially just gain rush for free and have more side points. Now it's a 2.22 that, okay, maybe if you don't have a neutral follower, it can't attack, and that's not very good. But if you do, then it's still a free rush later in the game. And this is just way better. I would have been sort of okay if it was a 3/2, but I think I prefer it being a 2/2. But in terms of whether or not it's going to be played or not, from this point on, I don't actually think so. I think the Blood has better stuff on 2 now. Speaking of Blood, that's not all though. Baphomet was also nerfed, so this is Baphomet as it is now, with the really effective tutor of getting a Bloodcraft follower with at least 5 attack from your deck into your hand, which allowed for extremely consistent draws, whether it be for a combo piece or just a powerful follower. And it was kind of overtuned in that way, I think. If you think about Goblin Mage as well, that had to be nerfed to not tutor as effectively. And Baphomet right now has the role of tutoring stuff so consistently, especially with the enhanced 5 subtract 3 from its cost. In addition, just makes it a bit overtuned. So it's gonna become a just put a random Bloodcraft follower from your deck into your hand. I'm actually okay with this. People have been sort of crying out against this, saying that oh, this is just gutting Baphomet. But this brings it more in line with other cards like Mage Leader, for example, which has 1/1. And pulls slightly more effectively than just a random Swordcraft follower, as well as Dragon Summoner, which is a 1/2, same stat points as Baphomet, and just pulls a random Dragoncraft follower. So this brings it more in line. I think the previous version was a lot stronger than it should have been. It also clears up design space. So the problem with cards, right? When you balance a card, it's more than just its individual power level. You also have to think about what kind of design space it's constraining and how it could cause problems for you in the future. And having an effective tutor like that is like Baphomet, as it was before, really constrains that design space. So like you can't print something that great with 5 or more attack. And it was just a matter of time till Baphomet got busted, and it did. In this expansion we just saw Baphomet got busted. It's finally being brought back in line, so I'm actually okay with this change. The only problem is that it does have 1 health, which makes it easier to get pinged off. So that's kind of a shame. But still, I prefer this version than the version we had, for sure. The big boy himself, Spawn of the Abyss, so we know what he's like. Deal 12 damage or 16 damage just out of nowhere, especially since he has Ambush. Recently, Spawn has been a little less oppressive with the Rise of Phantom Cat, but the power level of this card individually, 16 damage just in 1 turn is I don't think it's healthy. So it's being changed to dealing 5 instead, and even on Evolve, it'll still deal 5, so the stats haven't been changed at all. It's still a 6/7 that evolves to an 8/9, but it'll always deal 5 on its effect. So rather than being able to do 16, the max it can do is now 13, which is a little bit better. Actually, a lot better. That's actually a huge difference. And unevolved, it'll only be able to do 11. And one of the big applications for Spawn was just to evolve it and then deal 8 damage to the face while trading, which is just ridiculous. Now it'll just deal 5, and then you can deal with the body that's left over, and that's a lot more manageable. Especially now since the card is actually falling out of favor a little bit. In a vacuum, I still think the card is very powerful, just looking at it. But in the environment, I'm not sure if it's going to be played anymore, considering Phantom Cat's on the rise. But definitely this will reduce the frustration level of playing against Blood. Especially, one thing they mentioned in the patch notes was that it was kind of a coin flip whether or not you went first or second in the mirror. And this was definitely one of the cards that contributed to that factor. Like, the first person who plays their Spawn basically has it in the bag. I think if they didn't hit Spawn, people would be very incensed. Moving on to the neutral package, Goblin Leader was hit, bringing it up from a 1/2 to a 2/3, but having it be 4 play points is a huge change. So this means that it has to compete in the 4 slot with Evolve minions that are good, like Tina or, you know, Cudgel and all them. And more importantly than all that, it has to compete with Alice, which makes this card a lot worse. You can't just Goblin Leader into Alice anymore, which was one of the power plays in the neutral archetype, in the neutral package. So, yeah, this really hits Goblin Leader hard, even though the stat points are buffed a little bit. So I'm really glad for this change. Thank goodness. One thing they mentioned in the patch notes was that the neutral blood win rates were like 56%, which is ridiculous. And hopefully this brings the package in line. And I'll be talking about cards that weren't nerfed after I just covered all through the cards that were. So if you're wondering where the Alice nerf is, we'll discuss that in a bit. So the next nerf is Grimnir War Cyclone. This one has been a long time coming. 3-play.23 ward. And you know what it does? It deals 4 damage. 1-1-1-1. Grimnir! And finally, nerfs so that it only hits the board and not the face. Thank goodness. I mean, I would have loved this nerf a couple months ago, but, you know, better late than never. And this is exactly the nerf I was calling for. This is great. This is so great. Because one of the problems with Grimnir before was that you just couldn't feel safe at 4 health against any class because it's a neutral. And it hits your face. Having it just clear the board and still be a 3-play.23 with ward, it's still great. But having it not be able to finish your face off is... oh, thank goodness. Just thank goodness. I'm so happy for this nerf, seriously. Next up is Ouroboros. You know him, one of the stars from Tempest of the Gods. The nerf is that they just removed his restore effect, so he no longer heals your leader. And now it just puts the Ouroboros back into your hand, which is perfect, actually. Yeah, I'm really happy with this. I know a lot of people are saying, like, oh, Ouroboros not even played, or at the moment, so, like, why nerf it? And you just gotta imagine that, you know, Ramp Dragon actually has been getting played a lot, actually, from my experience. You can just look at my last video. Where I farmed them with Mid Shadow, which that was kind of nice. That was kind of like a Tempest throwback Thursday. But in the end of the day, Ouroboros had a lot of things going for it in one card, and it really prolonged the length of matches and its survivability, as well as making you more survivable. As Dragon made it, you know, kind of ridiculous. Even if lots of decks are cutting it right now, you never know how the meta is going to reshape once the nerfs hit. That this is just something that they foresaw. It's gonna be a lot less frustrating to play against. You're not gonna feel that, like, you're still gonna feel kind of bad for removing it because you can just play it again, but you're not gonna feel like terrible for removing it because it's not gonna feel like the dragon's unkillable when it gets to that stage of the game. Princess Snow White, last card that's gonna be nerfed. In the patch notes, they were saying that they were worried that Haven would rise to the top once Blood was nerfed, and that's actually a sentiment that's been echoed by the community, at least what I've been seeing around. So they're gonna change the evolved form to be a 2-2. So instead of a 2-3, it's going to have 1 less health, which makes it a lot worse, but it was, like, super good before, so it makes it still good now, if that makes any sense. The thing with the 3 health is that it just let it trade so effectively against other 2-drops, because most 2-drops have a 2-attack stat line, and having it be able to, what, 2 for 1, 3 for 1 sometimes with Princess Snow White, for a 2-cost follower was really good. Reducing the health to 2 makes it so that on the second trade, it now can't just, you know, eat a 2-drop for free. It'll sacrifice itself, which makes it a lot more balanced. And yeah, there you go. Those are the 7 cards that have been patched. I like all the changes, actually. I think all these cards had to be hit for one reason or another, whether it was individual power level or constraining design space. Most of them for both. But let's talk about the cards that weren't nerfed and try and explain why, I guess. A lot of people were expecting Alice to be nerfed, as well as, you know, other problem cards like Big Knuckle Bodyguard and Eachtar. And I think Shadow might really see a resurgence here. Eachtar, my boy Eachtar, dodging another wave of nerfs. His head can't be taken. So let's talk about Alice for a second. I know a lot of people are expecting Alice to be nerfed, and the reason why Alice wasn't nerfed is because Goblin Leader was nerfed. I'm not saying that those two are necessarily equivalent, but you gotta remember that in a card game, a lot of people are sort of like, you know, up in arms already. So let's appeal to our logos here rather than our pathos for a second. In a card game, you know, changing one thing could just be the thing that is enough to let a counter deck rise up. You know, one number, making one thing cost one more, making one thing have one less attack or one less health. That could just be it. And I'm not saying that that's what's exactly going to happen, because I still think Alice is powerful, even with the Goblin Leader nerf, but, you know, this does invalidate one of the big power plays of Goblin Leader into Alice. I think that's the intention. They didn't want Alice to be bad, because a lot of the synergies revolving around neutral still have Alice's linchpin, and stuff that isn't in neutral blood, you know, like neutral rune or neutral forest. You know, these decks are actually pretty cool, and they're not as oppressive as blood is. And they still use Alice, so why should these decks have to suffer? I'm not saying that I agree or disagree. We'll just have to see how it is. I still think Alice is great. I still think the neutral package is potentially really strong. It's one of those things where you can't just gut everything at once, right? So you gotta change one thing, see how the meta plays out, see if there's any counter, and then if it's still a problem, then you can, you know, make iterative changes. If you just gut everything at once, it'll all just fall to pieces, and then you'll never know, like, oh, could it have been good without being overtuned? Should they have hit Alice instead of Goblin Leader? That is a very good question that I don't have the answer to. We'll just have to see how the meta plays out. So let's talk about the Eachtar nerf, or the non-existent Eachtar nerf, and why it didn't happen. So people are saying that once Blood was nerfed, and this is something I actually agree with. Once Blood was nerfed, Haven would be really good again. This is something they even said in the post. Haven had the second highest play rate. So would Dragon would also be good again. I've been seeing a lot of Dragon Ladder. And Shadow would be good again. Shadow's been making a resurgence lately, and it would be kind of like a repeat of the Tempest of the Gods meta. So they nerfed Snow White, which is good, and they nerfed Ouroboros, which is good, but they didn't nerf Eachtar, and that's got some people scratching their heads. And I think you gotta remember that, you know, they nerfed Shadow Reaper like just now, and they nerfed what? Catacombs before that. A lot of the mid-range Shadow tools that were used have been affected. And mid-range Shadow now looks quite a bit different to what it was before. So my best guess as to why they didn't touch Eachtar is because they want to see how this new variant is going to rise up against the meta that's going to happen after these nerfs land. I still think Eachtar is very good. Obviously, I think Eachtar is very good. Eachtar is extremely powerful. Eachtar is very strong, and frankly overtuned. And I've been saying that since he was announced. And right now, I just find it amusing that he keeps dodging nerfs left and right like some juke god. You know, worst case scenario, you can always look forward to the August patch later. Big Knuckle Bodyguard, a lot of people were expecting to get nerfed. Again, it's one of those things where they already nerfed Tove, they already nerfed Baphomet, they already nerfed Spawn. You can't just gut an entire class in one go. I think it's fine to leave BKB untouched after nerfing Blood. This much. For now, anyway. Well, that's it for my thoughts on the balance update, but most importantly, what do you think? Just let me know in the comments below. We'll have a conversation. Talk about these changes. Do you think it'll change anything? Do you think more should have been done? Do you think some things were hit too hard? Just let me know. I want to read it. At the end of the day, though, the most important thing is that Roost is coming back. And, you know, it's gonna rise from the ashes and pick us all up straight into the glory of the sun. Finally. Out of jail. Hashtag Roost out of jail. Real quick though, also in the upcoming patch, pre-built decks, new pre-built decks are going to be added. I was thinking of doing showcases of these new pre-built decks and, you know, giving my review on them. So let me know what you think about that, if I should be doing that or not. And also, new story mode missions, obviously I'm going to be covering those because the story mode is super fun. And yeah, so that patch is coming out real soon. Well, that's it for this video. Like it if you did, don't if you didn't. Subscribe for more Shadowverse content in the very near future. And of course, thank you to my wonderful patrons. Patreon.com/Ignideus if you want to help me out. I would highly appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.